And the cool thing about the open mics is you're watching people learn how to do it. Then that's how they learn how to do it. They learn how to do it in front of people, which is really weird.
But it makes sense to me because that's where I learned it.
Sure.
I had no preparation. There's a rhythm, it's like music.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that the audience is like your rhythm section. That is your drum. That's your beat. If you can get on a roll and they're laughing and then when to, hold for the laugh, feel it, and listening to that drum beat of the audience, they're not going with you. So you veer in another direction or they're coming with you. The audience is the only place to really learn it. Though there are other people, well, they still use the audience, like Jerry Seinfeld, who is an incredible wordsmith.
Right, but he still hones it in front of the audience.
Right.
It's all, you can't do it in a vacuum.
No.
I've never heard of anybody that wrote, maybe Cosby did. I think Cosby, in the end, he didn't do stand-up at all until he was performing. So I think he put together his specials and then would go on stage and do them. He had already had them written out.
Well, between you and me, I was a big Cosby fan when he had his albums and he really had an act.
Yeah.
And then at the end, even before he got in trouble, I felt like it was just, he would just sit there.
I never saw him live. Burr and I, we had planned on a trip to go see him live before all the craziness happened with him, and something happened and we canceled. He wound up going to see him somewhere. I think he might have went to see him in Vegas.
Did he like it?
He was very impressed. You know what was really impressed with him was Chris Rock. I remember we were in New York and Chris Rock came backstage. He said he had just seen Bill Cosby, and he said, "I'm a fraud." He goes, "I'm a fucking fraud." He goes, "That's how good he was." I go, "Really?"
I don't agree.
And this was quite a few years ago. This was maybe early 2000s.
I went to see him a couple times. I was such a big fan.
What years did you go to see him?
When did he get in trouble? Just about 5 years before he got in trouble.
So he got arrested maybe 7 years ago, something like that. So 12 years ago. So you probably saw him.
He was just sitting on an armchair, and it was like he would ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble for 15 minutes before there was a laugh, and I felt like he was. I felt this overwhelming
anxiety
feeling that he was just you should just be thrilled that I showed up.
Ooh,
and I felt like he wasn't doing the work. And I think that we always constantly have to do the work. You don't reach. And the more success you have, the more work you have to do because that expectation is there.
That's the idea of the club. That's why I need a club. You can't work out in arenas. How are you going to write new jokes in front of 16,000 people? You're not.
You can't.
You need to work clubs.
And just time and time and time. It's like fighting.
Reps.
You can't just show up for a fight.
It's very much the same thing in that everything is about how much time you put in.
Right.
You ever read The Outliers?
Yes.
Malcolm Gladwell?
Yes.
And when he talked about the Beatles in Hamburg, about how when they went to Hamburg, they were basically playing 8 hours a day. They were just constantly playing. And they came back to Liverpool after being there for a couple of years, and everybody was like, holy fuck, what happened?
Right.
All of a sudden they were this insanely good band. And it was they had put in so many reps. They were so tight and so honed. It was so beautiful. Yeah. They just synced up.
People don't do that anymore. People are getting hits off TikTok. And then they go out on tour and they don't have anything.
Yeah, but there's some people that are still doing it like that. And there's something
Comics.
to that. Well, even musicians. There's musicians that one of the things about music though is you can create amazing music in a vacuum. You can get together with a band and put together insane albums completely alone. And you could just through your creativity and your feel for what these songs are.
That's the artistry. It's like painting alone in a room.
And then they get on stage, or they release an album or whatever, and then they go on stage and the audience sings along to those things. I mean, it's a totally different vibe. The audience, they're not learning it. You're doing stand-up, they're learning these jokes as you're doing them and laughing along because it's unexpected. With them, it's it's exciting. You want to see them. You want to see these songs that you love. It's a totally different kind of thing.
Because they don't need anything from the audience,
right.
So they can do that. A comic cannot do that.
Right.
A comic
can't do that.
A poet can do it.
Sure. An author can do it. I mean, there's people that create things in a vacuum, but we, unlike any other art form, we kind of need the audience to create something.
The club is our
kind
gym.
of, yes. Not kind of need it. We 100% need it. That would be like learning jujitsu with no drills. Like you have to do drills. If you don't do drills, you're not going to understand the positions. You got to
still
do
fight?
reps. I still train. I still do martial arts.
You compete?
No. I'm 55 years old.
I don't know.
Get broken. Bourdain did it. He competed when he was like 58 or 59.
Competed? Did he?
Yeah,
Did he
won
place?
a tournament in like master's class or whatever it was, his age class.
So they do age
appropriate.
class.
Yeah, but I'm not interested in doing that.
You're not interested?
No, first of all, I'm a black belt. So I'd have to roll with some dude who's a black belt my age, and he's probably been like nonstop training, and I'm going to get strangled.
Okay.
That seems like a bad idea for me. And also, I would love it, and I would probably be obsessed with it, and all the other things that I do would probably fall by the wayside because I'd be obsessed with competing for as long as my body can hold up. You just got to... When you're someone like me in particular, you have to know what you can get involved in because I get obsessed with things. And when I get, that's my mental illness. My mental illness is like extreme obsession, whether it's games or anything. I just get obsessed with comedy. I get obsessed with martial arts. I get obsessed with things. So I have to manage my obsessions with the amount of time that I have. I get obsessed with archery. I get obsessed with things. And so it's a good mental illness to have because it allows you to excel at things. But you have to be able to manage it. I have to know what I can and can't get too nuts with.
Do you still enjoy doing this?
I love doing this. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love it. If I don't love it, I won't do it.
Really?
Yeah, I don't want to do something I don't love. I love it. How could you not enjoy talking to cool people? It's fun.
I've just been doing it for a year now, and
I
it's
would do it if there was no podcast.